Hello, this is Nick Hebert. We're going to be discussing our mobile app that myself and Tyler made. I'm going to begin with an introduction into answering some of the questions that the professor outlined. The first being talking about the scope of the project, what our project was, how we started out, what our idea was, the initial reaction to how we're going to design the project, and then how that transformed throughout the stages of the project. So we'll kind of go over that after I discuss the scope of the project. I'm going to talk a little bit about um, the actual code itself and go into some things that we were proud of, what we struggled with, just give a really good view of the application itself. And then I'm going to turn it over to Tyler to discuss some other things as well. So first, let's get started by delving into a discussion about the scope of the project. So here we go. Gonna bring over the time clock design document. This is what we initially started out with and what we sent to the professor there. So the app summary, it is an app that allows the employee to enter their time and store it. So every company has some form of an application that tracks employees, the time that they come in and the time that they leave. And that's what we wanted to create as well. But we understood that there are many times when time zones don't match up. So we wanted to overcome that barrier as well. And we wanted to use different forms of CSS and animations and transformations and transitions to give it a really nice feel. And we wanted to build the clock itself. That was a huge part of what we wanted to do. And this is, something that would save an employer plenty of time. And we're really proud of the results that we had. We think we came up with a really a very a very functional and very modular application that we feel like if we kept going, we could make this a very viable product. So here's kind of the outline of what we started with. We had three main screens, and we wanted to break this down into these three screens: a launch screen, a welcome screen, and a time recording screen. So somebody enters, they put in their name, their title, and their time zone, and then they enter the time recording screen here. Pretty simple there. And then you just press start, back, reset, things like that to make that happen. And this was a single page application, so we had to come up with the format of how are we going to basically get rid of one page. To the user, it might look like three separate pages or however many pages, but for us, it was just one single page. So how do we build the DOM and then destroy the DOM and then build it again and destroy it again? And how do you do that very consistently and using modularity so that you don't have to rewrite code so many times? We wanted to keep it dry. And we feel like we accomplished that very well. So scrolling down, here's kind of the functions, and most importantly here is what I'll highlight is our UML diagram consisted of some base objects that we wanted to work with. And let me scroll down here to show you. We wanted to work with a user object, everything inherited from a user, and that was kind of how we would store state in the application and how we would move from one thing to the other. But not every user is the same, and as we talked about, how are we going to enhance this app besides what we've already planned? Well, we decided that we wanted to have a base user and we wanted to have an admin. And we wanted to give certain features and functionalities to an admin that a base user or a non-privileged user doesn't have. And then you'll see here that we had a has-many relationship between a user, inherit a base user or an admin inheriting from a user, and that has a has-many relationship with a time record. So that's the main functionality there. Um, and so things did change along the way. Mainly, we didn't. You'll see here that we only had these three screens initially: launch screen, welcome screen, and time recording screen. But then we realized, well, if you're going to have these admin classes, well, you need to actually make the admin do something, not just have an unnecessary object. So we created an admin section as well. And once we had an admin section, well, we determined, well, you're going to have to determine if a user is an admin or a non-privileged user. And if you're doing that, then you kind of need to have a way to toggle between the two to see, make sure that the functionality is working and that an admin can see all of the employee records for all of the rest. So we did add a lot to what we initially thought we were going to do. And it turned out really nice, and we're really proud of the results there. So without further ado, let's kind of jump into the app here. So you'll see it's Tyler and Nick's time tracker. And you'll see here that we have this video here. Don't worry, it's we will put a video there that explains the functionality of the video or of the application. But for now, let's just go ahead and continue here. You'll see here that we have a nice transition to kind of determine whether you're focused in the app or not. And here's the welcome screen here. Really cool welcome screen where we're going to put in our first name, our last name, our title, the big chief, and then let's give ourselves a time zone of Mountain Time or whatever time you'd like to. And then you'll see here that we have an admin or basic user, and you can toggle between those two. So I'm going to pull in the code here a little bit. You've seen that first screen, so you might ask, how did we get to that first screen? So let's jump in here and talk about how we're building that DOM. So when we press the continue button from that very first screen, we hit a function called launch screen display. Sorry, that is the launch screen display is when we actually turn the app on. We call that in the JavaScript. We hit that, and then once we press that continue button, we go to display welcome screen, and then let's continue here. Perfect. So what we say is we have a class name here. What we want to do is that user list that you see every time that you reload that page, you don't want to add more users onto there, so we're going to reset that to 0. And then what we're going to do is we're going to append an empty option into that user list, and then we're going to iterate through all of the users that we have stored in local storage, and we're going to create an option for those. So essentially, we have some static HTML, which is the first name, the last name, the user type, things like that. But we as well wanted to create that user list that you see right here. You can either fill in this information for a new account, or you can log in as a different user. And so let's go ahead and do that. Let's well, I guess first, let's go ahead and log in as Nick Hebert. So you'll see, so I didn't create a new user here. What I'm going to do is enter as a logged in user already, Nick Hebert. So boom, there we go. And you might say, whoa, that's a new screen. How did we get there? All right, well, let's jump back over to there. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit about that show screen display function. Let's see here. So display, that was the time recording screen. But before we jump into that, what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about let's see here. Here it is. Okay, so here's the button that we just clicked on to get us to this point. It's the show screen time recording screen. So let's jump over to that show screen. If we can find it, there it is. Great. So we're here on the show screen. So every time we transition from one screen to the other, we're going to call this show screen. And what that's going to do is it's going to clear the DOM. So let's go over here, if you don't mind with me, and let's go to clear DOM. So what it's going to do is we have all of our divs here that we could interact with. And that matches that these divs match the template that I showed you at the beginning, and we iterate through those, and we destroy. We just do an x.style.display equals none. So we clear the DOM, then we recreate the DOM. So on here we're doing a time recording, and now we're displaying the time recording. So let's go to there. So what we say is let's draw the time clock, and then let's display a greeting message, and then let's show the user records. And what those user records represent are these right here. These time in, time out, and total time worked. And that's really nice functionality. It gives you the time here in your time zone. So if you were Mountain Time or Eastern Time or whatever, it would change that. It would be accordingly. So let's go ahead and clock in, and let's see that it works. So we're at 3 right now. So let's go ahead and jump back over, and we'll keep discussing things as we move on. So like we said here, this Nick Hebert, he is an admin. So what does that mean? Well, an admin is going to have the ability to view all the employee records, and that's going to be a very helpful functionality for our employers. So right now, let's go ahead and clock Nick Hebert back out. He's worked for 35 seconds, a really grueling day there. And you'll see that we have all of our records. We're going to scroll down here, and boom, we see that we just added that here. He worked 0.01 hours, a very tough day. And then so like I said, Nick Hebert is an admin. So when we click this employee records button, we're going to, once again, we're going to do that show screen. Let's see here. Here we are. We're going to do that show screen functionality. We're going to say screen equals admin. Perfect. We're going to say current user dot user type equals admin, and we're going to display the admin screen. So let's go to that. So perfect. Here we are. And let me go back to that. That was an important thing that we needed to go over. Display admin. Show screen. Perfect. Here we are. So it says if the current user dot user type equals administrator display screen, else alert this user is not an admin, so they do not have permissions. And then we'll reload our current screen. So we'll never allow the person to see the see the admin page if they aren't an admin. And how do we know that they're an admin? Well, like I was talking about, when we sign up a user, so let's go here to handle new account. This was that prior screen, but here's where it fits in. When we create that user, we determine if that user is an administrator or not, and then we say new user equals new admin, or new user equals non-privileged user. And then at that point, those two classes inherit from a user. So now we can create a user object that's concurrent in the whole application. And we're going to save that to a global current user variable. And then we'll save that into our local storage so that we always have record of that user. So really nice functionality. Oops, left in a debugger there. So let's go back. So we were talking about that admin page. So we know that Nick Hebert is an admin, so let's go ahead and press employee records. Okay, so now here we are once again on the employee records page, or sorry, on the admin page. And you can see that we got a list of all of the users in the system right now. Um, and how did that happen? Well, let's go here to that display admin screen. And let's say display greetings message, so that's going to put that hello Nick Hebert there, and then let's say show users table. So there it is, right below it. It's going to grab the employee table and it's going to clear it out. And then we're going to grab all of the employees from local storage, and then we'll iterate through them and then create the HTML for it. So a lot of this is very dynamically created HTML. And then we're adding on a button there at the end, and we're adding an on click to it, view employee records admin. And so what that means is on the click, when we click that, view records, oh cool, now we can see all of the records for a given user. So how did that occur? Let's see here. So we cleared out that table once again. And we basically did exactly the same thing. We grabbed all of the employee records, which we did here with get employee time records, and we provided that employee ID, and then we created the table yet again. So a very handy way of doing it. And then we created that, and now we can just toggle through and view all of the records for the user. So pretty cool stuff there. So let's go ahead and so I'm going to kind of finish off here with what am I most proud of. Well, the first thing that I would say is definitely proud of the modularity of the application. Things like this get impl time records function, that's something that we use in several different situations in the application. And so we created these functions that were used several times, and it really enhanced that one. And then we used this show screen, which was used several times along with this clear DOM, which these functions really became like handy little tools that we could use at any time that we needed to without having to add more code. And that was really, really cool. And then our ability to use these user objects was really helpful as well. It really enhanced our ability to keep track of who are we currently working with. So we have this current user, and now we're moving on to the next user. So that was really, really cool. So a lot of really cool stuff here. I'm going to hand it over to Tyler now, and he's going to discuss a little bit about the transitions that we used.